Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk about using analysis in your essay. And specifically, we are talking about the literary analysis type of essay. This is what you will commonly do in high school English and beyond, perhaps college English and that type of thing, is analyzing literature and considering what happens in the literature and then explaining through your insights and your observations about why that's important. And so that is the analytical process. So let's jump in. If you would like to do this little short warm up, you can to get your brain going. Think of a superhero. Who do you think has the best set of skills? Even if you're not that into superheroes, try to remember one from childhood. So jot that down, maybe take just a couple minutes, get your brain warmed up. And then if you have somebody near you, if you are in a learning environment where you have somebody close by, you can share this with them. If not, you can just think about it yourself. A few sentence frames that might help you start thinking of your response are over here on the right. Blank has the best set of skills, which include blank. And then these skills are most important because blank. So pause the video here, spend a few minutes, get warmed up, and then we'll continue. Okay, so hopefully that got you thinking a little bit. So if you notice over here, this first sentence, blank has the best set of skills, which include blank. Okay, if you notice over here, this first sentence, blank has the best set of skills, which include blank. Most likely your response here is a fact. It's something that anybody that is familiar with that character would also say, yes, that's true. So for instance, let's say you said that Spider-Man can project web-like substance from his wrist. That's a fact. This second sentence here, these skills are the most important because blank and blank and blank, whatever you chose to write about there, that's more your insight, your thoughts, your observations, your analysis. And so both of these things work together to make a strong argument. And that's what we're going to get into a little bit today, specifically by talking about analysis. Real quick, before we jump into analysis, I do want to make the distinction between plot details and analysis. Plot details from a story or a play, a novel, whatever text you're looking at, these are the sequence of events or the key actions in a story. These things move the story forward from one point to another. This includes things like setting, conflict, the climax, the change, the outcome, the resolution. All of these things are important to the story, but these are the plot details. If you were to sit down and tell somebody all of these things about a recent book or short story you read, they might find it interesting, but this is not the same thing as analysis. This is a summary. If you're telling somebody the plot of the story, you are summarizing the story to them. And most likely, when you were in elementary school and maybe middle school, you did some plot summary. You explain to somebody the details of the story. And that is one part of the learning process. And that's one part of the writing process. But what you're doing now, that you're a little bit older or more advanced or developed, or in the class that you're in, you're going beyond just reciting the plot details of a story. And you are thinking about those plot details. And then you are forming an analysis based on those plot details. So, this is what analysis is. Analysis involves the reader's thoughts and insight about what happens in the story. This involves your opinion, and not everyone will have the same one after reading the story. You might think that a character has a certain set of strengths, and somebody else might think that's a weakness. So, these things will differ. Your analysis is going to be unique to you. Now, people might agree with you, but not everybody in the room will agree with you, most likely. This is different than the plot because if everybody's read the book, everybody should agree on what happened in that plot for the most part, unless it's some type of tricky, unreliable narrator or something. But for the most part, everybody should agree on the plot if they've read the book. But analysis is going to differ from person to person based on your insights, your observations, and your thought process. Even though the analysis is your thoughts, though, it should be based on what happens in the story. You cannot go completely out of the realm of logical thought or possibility when you're making an analysis. And this is why the evidence that you use in your paper and the analysis that you use in your paper really has to go hand in hand. You should be using evidence, quotes, paraphrasing, summarizing, that type of thing, and then following it up with analysis that explains why that evidence is important, and even relating it back to your topic sentences, relating it back to your thesis statement. This is how you develop analysis in a full essay. So let's look at a few examples just to distinguish that a little bit more. This paragraph is mainly plot details. I'm going to read it out loud, and I want you to think about what are all the plot details listed here. Peter Parker is an orphaned high school student who lives with his aunt and uncle and is ruthlessly bullied by his classmates. He deeply admires his beautiful neighbor, Mary Jane Watson, but is too shy to tell her. One day, while on a school field trip to a university, Peter ventures into a laboratory and is bitten by an escaped genetically modified spider. When he wakes up the following day, Peter discovers that he has spider-like and superhuman abilities. He takes on the Spider-Man persona to fight and defend others, all the while keeping his true identity hidden. After his beloved uncle's death, he recognizes the weight of his responsibility as Spider-Man and goes on to become the main adversary of the Green Goblin. Spider-Man continues to heroically defend New York City while battling his long-standing romantic feelings for Mary Jane. In the end, she discovers his secret identity, and Peter must choose to use his power for the good of others. Okay, so that's a nicely written paragraph. It's got some good verbs in there. It's got, range of sentence types, and it's nicely written. But if your teacher wanted you to write an analytical essay on the best superhero that exists, this would not get a good grade. And the reason is this is a lot of plot details. This simply tells your reader what happens in the story. This doesn't fully analyze Peter Parker's strengths. It doesn't tell me anything insightful about your thought process as you read this book. It doesn't show us anything beyond the surface of just what happens in the story. And so even though it's well written, it is not strong analysis. Okay, this is a contrast. This one does have analysis. And so I want you to think about what are the details from this paragraph that are analysis. There is details. There is still paraphrasing and summarizing some things that happen in the story, but hopefully you will notice that there's much more analysis in this paragraph. So let's read through this one. Spider-Man has some of the most unique skills of all superheroes. He is also gentle and kind, making him emotionally stronger than any other superhero from the Marvel world. Able to fling spiderwebs that attach to nearly any surface, Spider-Man can swing from heights hundreds of feet in the air, which gives him a skill similar to flying. This versatile ability makes it incredibly hard for a nemesis to defeat him. His awesome skills set him apart from other superheroes, but what makes him truly impressive is his humanity. Spider-Man shows an unmatched gentleness and appreciation for people and creatures. When battling a foe, he will often immobilize that opponent rather than kill them outright, showing that he values life. An example of this is when he fights Rhino. Instead of simply killing him, he immobilizes him, then engages Rhino in a conversation about his fears and struggles. Spider-Man's emotional intelligence, paired with his unique skills, makes him the strongest of all Marvel superheroes. So if you are looking at this paragraph, hopefully you can see that though there are some plot details that help explain, there's also a good amount of analysis that helps your reader see that you have thought beyond simply the plot and you've really made connections and you've made insights. Oops. It starts with a strong topic sentence because this topic sentence sets the paragraph up because it has analysis in the topic sentence. So instead of just recounting the plot or who Spider-Man is, it sets it up with analysis. He's gentle and kind, making him emotionally stronger than any other superhero from the Marvel world. Notice somebody in your class could argue with you on this point. A friend, a parent, a classmate, they might say, that's not true. He is not the strongest superhero in the Marvel world. If somebody can argue with you about the point, that's good. That means that it is your insight, your observations, and it's not just a fact from the story. So for literary analysis, we want to make sure we have analysis in that topic sentence that you are then going to explain in the rest of the paragraph. Then you do have some facts here, some facts about him. He can fling spider webs, they touch any surface. This is his skill set, and that's an awesome skill set. But then it really moves on into much more analysis. What makes him truly impressive? This is analysis, is his humanity. He shows an unmatched gentleness and appreciation for people and creatures. This is analysis. Not everybody would agree with that. Now, this is plot details or evidence or facts. He often immobilizes, and then in a specific example, he immobilizes Rhino, but explaining why that's important. And then even tying it together here in the concluding sentence, this is analysis. Now, this paragraph has really kind of an even mix of plot details or evidence and analysis. Some teachers will instruct you that you need more analysis than evidence, more analysis than plot details. And so this paragraph, though it's much better than this paragraph could still use some more analysis to really develop the point more fully. So we're going to look at a couple more examples to really nail down this concept. Before we move on to those other examples, though, let me just clarify very quickly which one to use. In most secondary English classes, like this class that you're most likely in, you'll generally be asked to do more analysis than plot summary, as I mentioned with that last examples. Remember that the plot details or the summary of the plot should support your analysis and help you explain why or how you think a specific way or how you came to that point. That's what you should be using the plot details to do, not simply to summarize, but really to go into that analysis. If you're using plot details, if you're summarizing part of the story, or if you're using a direct quote even from a story, the point of using that needs to be because it's going to help explain your analysis, or rather your analysis and your evidence are working together to explain your topic sentence. Assume that your reader will be familiar with the story behind the character. This is in the situation where if you are doing this for a teacher, an instructor, somebody like that in English class, your instructor is probably very familiar with the book that you've read, the novel, the play, the text. So you don't need to summarize the entire play. You can just give a brief bit of plot so that then you can go into your analysis, or give some evidence, a direct quote or something like that, and then go into your analysis. For the most part, assume that they know the story. This would be different if you were, let's say, writing a book that you wanted to get published and you have a massive reading audience and you don't know if they've read the book that you're referring to or not. In that case, you would probably have to go into more plot details. But if you are writing for an English class, for an English teacher or professor or instructor, assume that they are pretty familiar with that story and don't spend a lot of your time summarizing the plot. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. And you might want to go ahead and pause the video here, whether or not you are able to highlight or have a situation in which you can highlight, but at least think in your mind about which details in this paragraph are analysis and which details are simply plot, summary of plot, or things like that. All right, I will read it out loud for you. It says, Woody, the lovable leader of the toys in the movie Toy Story, is a dynamic character who discovers how to give and receive love and friendship. Woody endures many obstacles, such as escaping from Sid, a boy who tortures toys, and finding his way home after getting lost at a gas station far from Andy's home. These encounters build resilience and determination in Woody. They also bond him to Buzz. Ultimately, Woody is changed by his experiences with Buzz and is a better version of himself at the end of the movie. So think about this paragraph. You might notice the topic sentence. You might notice the concluding sentence. In the middle there, what are the plot details and what is the analysis? You can pause the video here for a second. Okay, so hopefully you came to this conclusion here. Although our first sentence is our topic sentence, it does have analysis in it, and it should. Your topic sentence should have strong analysis so that then you can explain that in the rest of your paragraph. So our topic sentence has analysis. He's the lovable leader of the toy, so even that adjective there is analysis. He's a dynamic character. That is analysis. Who discovers how to give and receive love and friendship. That is analysis. The movie did not tell us that directly. That is not part of the plot. I had to analyze that character to come to that conclusion. Now, you might say, oh, everybody would agree that he's lovable. Perhaps. But still, I had to come to an understanding of that. I had to use my brain. I had to make that insight. And so that is analysis. So our topic sentence is analysis. Here in yellow, we have the plot details, the paraphrasing part of the story that's going to support my analysis. He endures many obstacles. He escapes from Sid. He finds his way home after getting lost at a gas station. Anybody that's watched the movie would say, yes, those things happened. And so these are the plot details, the evidence for the analysis that I'm making. Then I go on into more analysis because I'm saying this builds resilience, this builds determination, this bonds him to Buzz. All of these things are my own thoughts, my own insights, my own observations. I had to connect the dots to come up with that analysis. And so you can see in this, though it's a very short paragraph, there is more analysis than there is plot details. And that's what we want to try to do when we are analyzing literature. For the most part, you want to get a little more analysis than plot details. Sometimes it's going to come out a little bit more evenly, sometimes more analysis. Again, if your teacher has directed you in a specific way with how much the ratio of details from the plot or evidence to analysis should be, certainly refer to your teacher on that. But this is just a general idea of what that breakdown can look like. Okay, this will be our very last example, but I wanted to do one actually from literature and not just from movies. So this is a paragraph about Edmond Dantes from The Count of Monte Cristo. And this describes, this essay is all about revenge and his identity and that type of thing. So if you'll notice in this body paragraph of this essay, think about what is the analysis and then what is the evidence or the references to the plot that the writer uses. Think about how these things work together to build a point. All right, I will read it out loud for you. It says, Edmund's desire for revenge becomes central to his identity once he escapes prison and discovers the treasure of Monte Cristo. After years of wrongful imprisonment, Edmund's focus shifts entirely toward getting back at those who betrayed him. Once free from prison, he declares, I will use this wealth to destroy those who conspired against me. This moment signifies the point at which revenge takes control of Edmund's life, guiding every action he takes moving forward. Instead of using his newfound wealth for personal freedom or peace, he sees it as a weapon, indicating a deep shift in his character from a kind and hopeful man to someone consumed by anger. Edmund's revenge fuels his transformation into the Count, giving him power and control, but also isolating him emotionally. So as you look at this paragraph, think about where you see references to the plot, either a summary or a direct quote, and then where you see analysis, where the writer had to use their brain, make some insight, make some observations that have to do with the central topic, the central thesis statement, that have to do with the argument that they are making about how revenge identity. So you can pause the video here and think through that for just a minute or two. Okay, so I've gone ahead and highlighted here what is basically analysis and then what is basically evidence or references to the plot. As you can see, your topic sentence includes analysis because I'm saying things like this becomes central to his identity. Now, him discovering the treasure of Monte Cristo, that, is something that happens in the plot, I suppose. But my main point here of how revenge becomes central to his identity, that is my analysis. That is the argument that I am making. Here, these two sentences are about what happens. Now, this is a little bit of analysis here because, I'm saying some things like this, his shift entirely to getting back at those who portrayed him. You could say that's maybe a little bit of analysis there, but mostly, this is references to the plot and what actually happens in the story. And then certainly a direct quote is always going to be evidence or a reference to what happens in the story. This whole part here is really analysis. I'm saying this signifies that the point at which revenge takes control of his life guides his every action. That's my insight. Somebody could argue against that. They could say it doesn't guide his every action, guides some of his life, not all of it. I'm saying it guides his every action. I'm saying he could have used this wealth for personal freedom or peace, but he doesn't. He uses it as a weapon. And then I'm saying this changes his character. He was kind and hopeful. Now he's consumed by anger. Again, that's my insight. That's my observation. the story did not tell me that directly. That is not something that happened in the story in terms of plot. That is my insight into his character and my observation about his character, and then my explanation of how that plays into this point I'm making in this essay about revenge and how it transforms him. So, and then I, of course, have a concluding sentence here, which your concluding sentence should also include analysis or be analysis. So, hopefully, that helps to explain a little bit more about the difference between analysis and plot details and how to use these in literary analysis. Hopefully, you've gotten a few examples here that can help you to see how to set this up in your own essay. But remember, you need to use both. You want to use evidence or references to the plot, which can be summarizing, paraphrasing, or direct quotes. And then you want to use those as basically a springboard for your analysis. Your analysis should explain how that evidence relates back to your topic sentence, which ideally, if you're writing a full essay, your topic sentence relates back to your thesis statement. Thanks so much.